Alright, so looking at our backlog, there's some things that I promised to record, but I never really got around to until now. So today we're going to be telling some retail horror stories courtesy of Virgil. Roll that intro. This video is sponsored by the coldest water. During the lockdown, it was difficult for me to get my proper daily water intake, but with the coldest 32-ounce sports bottle, it's really helped me to get my health back on track. Drinking more water is something that's always been a struggle for me, but honestly not anymore thanks to this bottle. I can fill it up with ice at the beginning of my work shift, and it's still full of ice when I clock out for the day. If I wanted to spice things up a bit, I could even keep my drink cold for up to 36 hours, which is way past the amount of time I'm usually working. Not to mention, it also keeps your drinks hot for up to 12 hours as well, so it's a win-win situation for all you coffee drinkers out there. I even bring the bottle with me when I go to the gym, so it's nice to have after a good cardio workout. It's really convenient, and it really helps for gas mask wearing nerds like yours truly. Links are in the description if you want to check them out yourself, and if you want to get a similar bottle, this is the coldest 32-ounce sports bottle. So in past videos and live streams, I mentioned my various horror stories regarding my time in retail jobs, but I never really went into detail about them. So today I thought I'd tell you all a story about the time I worked for one day at a gas station earlier this year, because the job was just that horrendous. So if you've kept up with me for some time, I've had absolutely awful luck when it comes to getting and maintaining a second job along with my morning news station one. While I can survive off of just the one job, it's not really comfortable living for me because I don't really end up having that much left over after the rent and bills and so on. So in the past few months, I've been to a few different places to try to find the one I can stick with, and one that works with my awkward schedule. So at the beginning of the year, I applied to work at a flex position at a local gas station chain. Basically, what this flex position entailed was that I could pick up shifts and days that I wanted, and I could allegedly work as little or as much as I desired. Now this sounds great on paper, and I immediately applied because before that I was working at Lowe's, which is another horror story I'll tell you in a separate video, but to sum that up, I was working essentially 7 days a week, 5 days at my morning job, and then Lowe's was having me work weekends along with some days during the week, so I wasn't getting a day off, period, for a while. So for the gas station, the process was really long and drawn out, and it took about 2 weeks for them to process my background check and get me in for orientation. I'm aware with the shortage of staffing and basically everything else under the sun that delays are definitely to be expected, but ordinarily for background checks it took a few days at best for them to process. So eventually I get a call back and was scheduled for orientation after my background check had processed. I had spoken with the gas station manager and their boss about my situation and not needing a ton of hours and only being able to work at specific times and days. So prior to this, they knew I couldn't work crazy schedules, as this is why I applied for the flex position to start with. So let me preface by saying in basically every single job that I've worked up until this point, orientation was very simple. You'd go in, watch some training videos, most of them being anti-union propaganda of course, you get your badge and a tour of the store, and that was it. This process generally is scheduled to be about 4 hours on average, because they don't have your set schedule yet and you're still getting in the system. So I go in for the gas station orientation, I meet the employees, the manager again, and I get a quick tour of the store. It seemed pretty straightforward at first, and then I was told to do computer training while they asked for my social security card and my ID per the required 2 forms of ID that they needed to process. I've done these training videos and quizzes hundreds of times before, courtesy of places like Walmart, Lowe's, Bed Bath & Beyond, etc. So I finished within an hour and a half. The training was simple, just brainless questions on how you'd react in a situation, like how to avoid scams, just basic stuff like that. After letting the manager know I was done, my assumption was that after that I'd get to go home because prior experience told me that these kinds of orientations go by really quickly, and then afterward they'd give you a proper schedule, you'd come in for that day, and then you're an employee. What I was not told, however, was that apparently they had already made me a schedule for me without my knowledge, and they tossed it on to me as if yelling, "Surprise, I hope you didn't have plans!" I told them numerous times that I can't do too many hours because of my primary job in the morning, and because I have martial arts classes I take on Mondays. Completely ignoring this fact, I'm given a quote-unquote training schedule where they're essentially having me learn every position in the gas station, from the stock room to making food in the kitchen, taking orders to calling corporate for some reason, basically shoving every position and then some down my throat in one sitting. My training schedule had me at full-time hours for the next 2 weeks, working every day, overlapping my already existing schedule and having me train at different locations. I fully understand that the flex position requires me to work at different stores, but I wasn't told either in the job description or the interview was that I would be expected to run whole stores by myself, doing 8-hour shifts, and only getting a pathetic 10-minute break, if even that. I was basically told that I was going to be doing cashier work, and that was pretty much all I was going to do because the kitchen is a completely separate job position. Shortly after the training videos, they just threw me onto the register without even really training me at all, and just expecting me to know stuff. Working in cashier positions my whole life, it's pretty straightforward for a lot of things, but things like putting money on the pumps when people are like waving at you from outside, expecting you to put money on a pump you can't even see the number for, that gets frustrating. I've never had to sell tobacco products before, and only alcohol in that instance was at Walmart where people bring it up to the register for you, so having people get frustrated at me when I couldn't find the specific kind they wanted was not the most positive experience on a supposed orientation day. The thing is, I haven't even gotten to the worst part of my experience. This seems pretty basic and straightforward for a lot of people, but this isn't even the worst part. So being the honorable person I am, I toughed it out and gave it a genuine shot because maybe the schedule being thrown on me was affecting my judgment regarding the overall job. So I was thrown an 8-hour shift instead of it being a 4-hour shift for orientation, but it just got worse and worse throughout the day. My coworkers were making inappropriate comments towards me and being condescending about every little thing that I asked about the job. The thing is, I'm fine with dirty jokes, but it has to be in context, and I have to have some familiarity with the person first. I'm completely fine with edgy, dark, gross humor. But these people were just out of the blue making these comments, and it was just an unprofessional atmosphere, and I had no idea who these people were. So the biggest red flag for me was the fact that the gas station was only allowed to have $200 maximum in any register to deter theft and prevent any massive loss to the store in event of a robbery. On paper, that seems pretty reasonable. But the thing that still blows my mind is that my coworker told me that if there was more than $200 in the register and someone comes in and robs me, I would get terminated. Yes, because being robbed at gunpoint is totally my fault. I mean, just imagine somebody coming in and shooting you in the leg, stealing the $200.01 out of the register, and then the next day at the hospital you're told that you're terminated, and then you have a major hospital bill to pay for. Not that the gas station really pay that because it's a minimum wage job, but still. This could have just been some nasty rumor that the people who worked there made up to scare me in order to follow the correct procedure, but based on what some of the other employees told me and how they didn't seem to be joking, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. My friend Matt, who also does content with me on this channel, worked at a gas station for a longer period of time, and he said it was one of the worst experiences of his life. He told me that he spent an entire morning shift cleaning up overflowing toilets and stepping in and cleaning up literal shit. Shortly after that, he said he was going home and the other employees expected him to stay when clearly he was hazardous with all the shit on his pants, his shirt, everything. I understand why they wouldn't have a dedicated janitor due to places like that being so small, but the lack of safety procedures for these things considered biohazardous material is shocking. At the gas station I worked at, an employee told me that it was a common occurrence to clean up blood and sometimes drug needles and other paraphernalia in the bathroom. And the employees are just expected to clean that up with some plastic gloves and no PPE. Coming from a retail background, I understand that some things aren't universal between different job locations and different industries. Though I've worked in the back room and stock in places before and other unrelated fields, and it's nearly universal if there's a mess like that, you as an employee are not allowed or even supposed to clean it up. Someone of management or of equal qualification is supposed to either clean it up themselves or get someone who's certified with proper personal protective equipment. Needless to say, I didn't return for the next shift because that was the most god-awful experience I've ever had at a job. Don't get me wrong, I know that not all gas station experiences are going to be the same, and I have a high level of respect for people who work in this field, so if you're in the comment section and you work in a gas station, if you enjoy it, then I'm happy for you. But my experience at this store was single-handedly the worst experience I've ever had at a job to date. So that's my story. If you all have some experiences like that you'd like to share, I'd love to see them in the comments, and who knows, maybe you have something 10 times worse. Either way, I'll see y'all next time. Thanks for tuning in.